So the Song of Prayer consists of these three sections, and in this session we will finish the the first section on prayer. And if you've missed any of the previous sections, we've been looking at what is prayer, what is the purpose of prayer, and we found that it's many things to many different people. And therefore, we're using a metaphor called the ladder of prayer, which extends from the very basic lower rungs are the level in which I think everybody begins with prayer, and then extends to higher and higher levels where the final level reaches all the way to heaven. So before we get into the formal reading for this session, I want to make a few points that we've seen already. And is that there are these stages of progress with prayer, and prayer is a mechanism of rising up and returning home. It's an upward ascension, and it begins wherever you are right now. Many of you already have some form of prayer practice, and so it meets you right where you are. And as we arise through these steps or stages of prayer, the form in which we pray keeps changing and growing. There's a way that you can look at prayer, which is not the conventional sense, but this is the way that the Holy Spirit looks at it, is that you are praying all the time, meaning, at least in your conscious life, the perceptions that you have of yourself, your situation, of others, and of life, and its purpose, you are projecting those beliefs outward. They become part of that's where the power of your mind is being applied into reinforcing those perceptions as real. And therefore, that can be viewed as applying the power of your mind toward a prayer. The thing that you should notice, though, is you can be praying towards illusions or praying towards the truth. And so we want to learn to distinguish. This is a primary task of A Course in Miracles, to distinguish illusions from the truth. So when we said when you pray, it's a projection of what you believe, and it reflects how you view yourself and in your relationship to the whole, to all of creation. Some people have no concept of their relationship to all creation. Others have a preliminary glimmer, and others have a more confidence in this. Your prayer reflects how you view yourself in relation to that. And so it begins with a vague and usually an unstable sense of identification, where guilt and inadequacy, this is the lower rungs, where guilt and inadequacy dominate one's self-concept, and it rises all the way up to the very heights of glory in knowing that you were created by love and for love and are a being of light. And so prayer enables us to ascend, but to do so, we cannot drag our guilt up the ladder of prayer. At some point, it becomes too heavy to climb any further, and we have to let go of those judgments by our mind, which cause us to believe that people are guilty, including yourself. And that allows you to ascend a little higher, where you begin to take others into account and pray for others and understand that they too have a part in the creation. And as we do this, we come to view what's called the unity of Christ. We come to view the Christ in everyone. All of this is contained within the range we call the ladder of prayer. And we will move into the new section in just a moment. But before we do, we're going to read the last paragraph from the previous section as a reminder. It will make more sense when we read the new section. Heather? Let me say hello and welcome to Miracles on High Plains. My name is Jonica, and our reader today is Heather C.
It is not easy to realize that prayers for things, for status, for human love, for external gifts of any kind, are always made to set up jailers and to hide from guilt. These things are used for goals that substitute for God, and therefore distort the purpose of prayer. The desire for them is the prayer. One need not ask explicitly. The goal of God is lost in the quest for lesser goals of any kind, and prayer becomes requests for enemies. The power of prayer can be quite clearly recognized even in this. No one who wants an enemy will fail to find one, but just as surely will he lose the only true goal that is given him. Think of the cost and understand it well. All other goals are at the cost of God.
Mm-hmm. So let me recognize the problem so it can be solved. And this is not to make anyone feel bad, because just about everyone has used prayer towards selfish ends to try to convince the Creator to implement my plan. Here's my plan, Lord. Please help me make this possible. And that becomes, it's largely unconscious, but largely becomes putting our own goals higher than our relationship with God. And everyone has done this at some point. We want to recognize that this is being done so that we can then distinguish that from the higher levels of prayer. And then you get to choose how you choose to pray. As you start to awaken, you realize that those lower levels of prayer may no longer serve who you are. They no longer serve the emerging identity you have as a son of God. And so we learn to set aside our goals and to turn towards God's will in prayer. Sandra?
So what I'm gathering from this is that it's saying, truly, my only goal is God, and to know God and to extend God. However, when I have another goal, like to create something, to build something, to create, I've always found that when I go for that, I can't do it without God, because it's like having another goal. Even if I don't think that it's God, it's always God. because if I set out to do something, there's so many obstacles in my way of doing it that I just got to turn to God in order to get through it. So no matter what, the only place to go is to God. Whether you're creating something, achieving something, or you can't. I can't do it without God. I can't do anything without God. I'm complete.
I think that the emphasis here, with granted the things that you said, the emphasis here is, where does the goal come from? Are these goals that I am guided by spirit from within to pursue, or are these self-appointed goals that I've decided without any reference to spirit, that to pursue these goals with no reference to spirit? That beginning point, the starting point, is really key emphasis here to the idea of using prayer as an effective means of tuning in. So with that, we read that mainly because on the second paragraph will make more sense when we see it in that light. Now we move into the final section on prayer, which is praying with others.
Until the second level at least begins, one cannot share in prayer. For until that point, each one must ask for different things. But once the need to hold the other as an enemy has been questioned, and the reason for doing so has been recognized, if only for an instant, it becomes possible to join in prayer. Enemies do not share a goal. It is in this their enmity is kept. Their separate wishes are their arsenals, their fortresses in hate. The key to rising further still in prayer lies in this simple thought, this change of mind. We go together, you and I.
So let's first of all orient ourselves on until the second level at least begins. So we're somewhere at the beginning of the second level. We're rising higher than those initial levels that we've read about so far. Until that begins, everybody tends to pray for different goals. So everybody's moving in different directions. I've got a goal, Sandra has a goal, Heather has a goal. We're all oriented towards a different purpose. But as we rise up, there is a convergence here in our purpose, of our intention, of our will. And that convergence is that it's no longer centered on what I want to happen, but it's now centered on, what would you have me do, Lord? And that takes into account other people. So what's good for everyone involved is now the scope of what we're praying for. It's a togetherness theme. We go together, you and I. And so separate wishes begin to fade. This is part of the baggage that we carry around, is solely being self-interested and carrying that into prayer. That tends to become too heavy to carry any further as we rise up these levels. And we set aside our own self-appointed task with separate wishes. So the key then becomes to lay our aspirations for what would be best for us to do in this world, set them aside in order to pray for guidance. So it's a letting go. The entire Course of Miracles is negativa, or a negation of all the thoughts that were generated out of a sense of littleness and lack and creating oneself. It's a negating of all that, or a relinquishing of all that, so that we might instead be inspired from within. And that leads us towards a commonality, a shared purpose, a shared sense of values and meanings. Noel?
My lesson for today is I have a function God would have me fill. And that fits in with this whole paragraph, because the Course says that my only function is to forgive my brother. So look at the third line. Once the need to hold the other as an enemy has been questioned, and that's what we're asked to do, to not see my brother as an enemy, no matter what he's, quote, done to me, but rather we go together. And this is, to me, the lesson of what my function is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it ties in very nicely, doesn't it? So I have a function God would have me fill. It's a God-given function, but let's also recognize the other side of that coin, which is called a confusion in function and a self-appointed function, where I'm going to decide, little me, what my purpose for being is. This is the ego's religion, is I'll be the one to decide what's best for me. It's my little will be done. So it's a confusion of function, gets corrected by the recognition that God has a function he would have us all fill, and it works towards a common good, towards where everyone is considered of value and recognized as equal. And this can be translated directly into goal setting. We're really not talking about anything different here. Our function is the purpose for which we serve with our time and our lives. It is, in that sense, a goal.
Now it is possible to help in prayer, and so reach up yourself. This step begins the quicker ascent, but there are still many lessons to learn. The way is open and hope is justified. Yet it is likely at first that what is asked for even by those who join in prayer is not the goal that prayer should truly seek. Even together you may ask for things, and thus set up but an illusion of a goal you share. You may ask together for specifics and not realize that you are asking for effects without the cause. And this you cannot have, for no one can receive effects alone, asking a cause from which they do not come to offer them to him.
It would be very easy not to read this and not understand, because we're talking about cause and effects, and not understand the cause, perhaps get a glimpse of the effects. So this is a real opportunity here. So we're talking about joining together with another person in a common good, but we're still at the beginning levels of that. It's starting to begin the quicker ascent, because now at least we're sharing a purpose with another. There's still much to learn, however. And there may be a tendency to go back and do the same thing, is to decide in advance what it is you want, and then pray that God will give you what you said you wanted. All right, so this is to ask for the effects, the goal, the self-appointed goal the self-appointed outcome without addressing the foundational relationship to the creator and creation. You're bypassing the goal of God and getting to your goals, which in time and space, and prioritizing those effects over the foundation. And this is to miss the point of prayer. Prayer is intended to bring clarity to your heart and soul and to others of your relationship with love and with creation and the creator. That's the cause. And then when that is clear and solid, the effects flow naturally from that. The functions which God has given us flow naturally when the relationship is clear. And so we've got two situations here. One is the mistaken way of putting our own goals up front and forgetting the cause. And the other is the correction or proper way, which is to focus on the relationship and bringing the purity of your own being into the presence of the creator and recognizing how what is true, what is present, and what is real, and then trusting that all the details in time and space will work out for the good. So the effects flow naturally from a clear and certain cause. I would say that if there's nothing else you got from this material, this would be one to get clear on. Pray to become consciously aware and clear about your relationship to the creator and creation, and then trust the effects that God has the plan, and those effects will flow naturally and be good for you, will serve your good. Sandra?
So am I hearing you say that the focus should not be on the creation, but on the relationship between those who come together to create for a common good?
Yes, I would say it a little differently, but I think we're on the same page. The focus should be on the relationship, a holy relationship, and then trusting that God has the plan, which should flow from that naturally. And you may already have been inspired with part of that plan. It might be go spend a month with your best friend who needs your help. What we're doing is we're entering into a state where clarity prevails, and we're trusting that we'll know what we are to do in the light. So the miracles are seen in light, not in darkness. So we're entering in to the clear light of a holy relationship and trusting that we'll see the answers that will follow there. This obviously differs from already having my answers that I found in the clouds and in confusion, and then trying to carry that into the light and getting it affirmed, which is what I did for many, many years. So I think I'm assuming that others have done this too. I'm not certain of that, but I assume what they're writing about here is the human condition. It's true for us all. So yes, get the relationship right and trust that God's plan will be made clear to us.
The only thing different for me is that I seem to, I have a vision first. Then I know I'm going to have to bring in other people to create that vision. And I know it's about relationship with them. But like I said, I can't function without God because I can't be in any relationship with any human being without God. I can't do it. I just can't. I got to
Exactly.
have the Holy Spirit. I got to have something to turn because I don't understand. I know there's only one of us here and they're all mirroring me, but I still have so many challenges in relationship. I just gotta, I have to bring the Holy Spirit in every minute.
So we're saying it starts with relationships, and
Yeah.
the vision flows from that.
And the challenge is that not everybody's God oriented. So I could be, they could be orienting somewhere else.
True. Our focus here is on how we can ascend the ladder of prayer and know that you're not alone in the experiencing the effects of your seeing in the light. That as we ascend into the light, others are impacted positively by that.
Yeah, and I couldn't do it without all of you either. So there you go.
There you go. Heather?
Even the joining then is not enough. If those who pray together do not ask before all else, what is the will of God? From this cause only can the answer come in which are all specifics satisfied, all separate wishes unified in one. Prayer for specifics always asks to have the past repeated in some way. What was enjoyed before or seemed to be, what was another's and he seemed to love. All these are but illusions from the past. The aim of prayer is to release the present from its chains of past illusions, to let it be a freely chosen remedy from every choice that stood for a mistake. What prayer can offer now so far exceeds all that you asked before, that it is pitiful to be content with less.
So, two approaches to this matter. One is before I even begin praying, I already have my answer. I'll call it a vision, an intention. I already know what it is that I want. And now I'm going to try to go into prayer to try to make that happen. That comes down to where did that idea of what I want come from? Well, and this is an abstract concept here in the course about praying for specifics. It's an abstract concept that can take a while to wrap your understanding around, but it's universally true that when you already specifically have the details in mind of what it is you want, where did those specifics come from? They've come from your own knowledge, your own past memory, your own constructs, your own projections of the details of what you want. And so always do prayers for specifics are but illusions from the past. They're formulated based on the little mind deciding what would best. The aim of prayer is to go empty-handed into prayer, to via negativa, to release and relinquish all of my notions that I've got it figured out and that I'm in control of my own life and I know what's best, to relinquish all that and go with an open heart but empty hands. So it's not a depraved conditions. It's okay. We should say empty hands. I no longer have my list of my agenda here. I go with empty hands, and that in the sense that I'm devoid of pre-planning, and I go into prayer with an open heart so that I might receive what is the will of God. And then from there, the answers will come in which specifics are given and satisfied. This is a very different, this is sequential in the sense that the sequence matters. If you go into prayer with your answer already looking to be affirmed, that's much different than going into prayer with no answer, looking for guidance, looking to affirm that you're willing to do whatever it is that God would have you to do. So, prayer, and I'm not saying that everyone utilizes prayer at this level, but I'm saying in order to ascend to this second level where the ascent goes steeper, we have to be willing to release our present aspirations, our present judgments, our present guilts and memories and plans from its chains of past illusions so that we might become free to receive the gifts that are available through God, inner guidance. Sandra?
So I think this might be saying not to be concerned for the results, because I know that's in the Course in Miracles everywhere, not to be concerned for results.
Yeah.
I have found in my experience that when I could let go enough, things turned out better than I could have ever thought.
Yes.
I couldn't even imagine how good they could turn out.
Yes.
And that's the beauty about not being concerned for the results.
Yes. Yes. Thank you for mentioning that, Sandra. It's so important. We witness to that truth that when we let go and trust, and I have examples of the specifics not coming to me right now, but for 2 weeks, I thought of every possible way of solving a problem. And I came up with a dozen ways, but I had no way of knowing which one would be the best. Okay. And through great anguish of feeling like the world rested on me solving the problem. And then at the end of all that, somewhat exhausted, I gave up and surrendered and said, I do not know what's best here. I can't possibly determine by myself what would be best for everybody involved. I let it all go. And later that day, all of a sudden, it came to me. And it was the simplest idea, but it didn't occur to me before. It came to me and it was the perfect solution. And as Sandra just said, it was far better than anything that I had thought of. And so the process does look very much like that. And maybe your process will look a little bit like mine. That first you'll grind away and try so hard to figure it out yourself until you expend a great deal of energy, and then you reach to the point where you say, I can't do this. I can't possibly know. And you release all of your aspirations and plans into the present moment. And from there, the answer arises effortlessly into your mind. What do I mean? I mean, the answer appears in your mind as if like, where did that come from? I had spent 2 weeks trying to figure out what to do. I thought of a dozen different solutions, but I never thought of the simple answer that came from letting go. And there's a saying, I learned it in Unity. It comes quickly, with ease, and under grace. It's another way of saying it's the perfect answer. It satisfies everyone involved wins, and it's easy. It feels so right that you know this is what you're guided to do. So I recommend that you not spend 2 weeks grinding away in effort, that you shorten that process and go as quickly as possible to praying for, above all else, praying, what is it that God would have me do here? For I do not know.
You have chosen a newborn chance each time you pray. And would you stifle and imprison it in ancient prisons when the chance has come to free yourself from all of them at once? Do not restrict your asking. Prayer can bring the peace of God. What time-bound thing can give you more than this, in just the little space that lasts until it crumbles into dust?
Let's let that go without comment. Move on.
Prayer is a way to true humility. And here again it rises slowly up and grows in strength and love and holiness. Let it but leave the ground where it begins to rise to God, and true humility will come at last to grace the mind that thought it was alone and stood against the world. Humility brings peace because it does not claim that you must rule the universe, nor judge all things as you would have them be. All little gods it gladly lays aside, not in resentment, but in honesty and recognition that they do not serve.
Another gift from the reading we're doing in this session is a concept of true humility. We won't spend so much time with false humility at the moment, a pretension that might be exhibited for the benefit of how others will think about you, but rather true humility in prayer that says, I don't know what to do. Other people are involved, including myself, and I can't possibly figure out what's best for everybody involved here. God, I need your help. True humility comes with an open heart and empty hands, with no plan. And this moves you immediately into a state where you can receive the answers, because you're no longer dragging along your own preconceived notions, your own goals, your own plans, your own aspirations. Practice true humility. No one needs to see it but you. This is something you practice in your inner world. It's about your prayer experience. It leads at last to grace the mind that previously thought it was alone, is now graced with a sense of receiving the gifts, that you're entering into prayer to receive these gifts. And pay attention to how it feels. It brings peace, because maintaining an ego posture is a lot of work. It's unbeknownst to most of us, trying to keep a false identity seen to be real and supporting it and defending it. It's very fragile, and it really doesn't know, but it pretends to know. All of that takes a lot of psychic effort to create this persona, this projection of who we are. But humility requires no effort on your part at all. I need do nothing, because I don't have the answers, and I'm not going to pretend to have the answers. I'm not, nor am I going to judge all things as I would have them be. And so this is the peaceful path, that it's quickly, with ease, and under grace. It feels peaceful to your soul to be on the receiving end rather than on the trying to dictate the solution in prayer. Oh, we should say we're talking about this in terms of our prayer life. And traditionally, we think of that as kind of solo, quiet time by yourself. But remember, we read that you are praying all the time. So that in all your relationships, you are actually exercising the power of your mind in the direction that you believe is real, the direction that you have put your faith into. And true humility shows up there as well, of a willingness to not always pretend that to know what's best in any given situation. It's about a softening of one's position. Did I get the right? Yes. Heather?
Illusions and humility have goals so far apart they cannot coexist, nor share a dwelling place where they can meet. Where one has come, the other disappears. The truly humble have no goal but God, because they need no idols, and defense no longer serves a purpose. Enemies are useless now, because humility does not oppose. It does not hide in shame, because it is content with what it is. Knowing creation is the will of God. Its selflessness is self, and this it sees in every meeting, where it gladly joins with every son of God, whose purity it recognizes that it shares with him.
So this concept of true humility is one that I would hope you retain and ponder, meditate upon, so that you might find yourself more and more attracted to and practicing true humility. I think the opposite of true humility could be viewed as arrogance, of being certain that I know what's best and my way or the highway. And so arrogance is a part of illusions. This is why illusions and humility are so far apart they cannot coexist. For the truly humble have doesn't mean they never had any self-appointed goals. It just means that they've come to recognize that all that was a miscreation of our mind, and all that was created out of our little mind. And so they are willing to set aside their self-appointed goals so that the goal of God comes first, and this can be said as there are no idols, defenses are no longer needed, enemies are useless. So this really is, to me, I've met truly humble people before. I can tell the feeling there in the person, and it's very easy to be with. And so I would say aspire to letting go all the obstacles so that each of us can enter in to this truly humble place. Heather?
Yeah, I like the idea that the opposite of humility is arrogance. And I think for me, if I'm in that state of feeling arrogant, it's because I think I know. And so I think, the idea that the child is very teachable. That's the whole idea of the humility, is that I don't know. And that's the essence of humility, is to not think that we know, anything, because I don't know what anything is for.
Exactly. Thank you. Sandra?
Yeah, how does one recognize purity in another? Because we're all mirrors. So if I don't see the purity in myself, how can I see purity in another? And how do I recognize it unless I'm just seeing myself in someone else? Or anyway, I thought that was interesting. Where it gladly joins with every son of God, whose purity it recognizes
Mhm.
and it shares with him.
Mhm. Yeah, I think you would have, we, anyone would have had to have a glimpse of their own true innocence, their purity, in order to recognize it when it's standing in front of them. It, I mean, all the laws of perception that we've talked about indicate that you have to have seen it in yourself before you see it in another. So I think you're right on about that. So that would mean that a totally arrogant person could be standing in front of a totally humble person and not know it because they're blinded by their own arrogance.
Mm.
That's very consistent with the laws of perception that the course teaches. But having said that, no one is 100% arrogant.
Mhm.
Everyone exists somewhere along a spectrum. And so just artificially, I'm going to make up some numbers here. Let's say I'm 90% arrogant, which is pretty arrogant, but there's a 10% humble there. So that would mean that I'd have a chance of recognizing some humility if I was willing to look that way, but that I'd have to overcome a lot of my own uh, self-centeredness in order to be able to recognize it. No one's absolutely arrogant and has no humility whatsoever. So there's hope for all of us.
That's why I love the yin yang sign, because that's balance, and there's nothing, and balance does not is not opposites. There's always a little bit of yin in the yang, and there's always a little bit of yang in the yin.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's the evolutionary process. It means it can change. That's evolution. It can change.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In the Course of Miracles, for those of you that are into the specific language, the Course refers to abilities, the ability to be humble. And it says that no one has all of the ability. Everybody lands somewhere on any given ability. We're talking about arrogance through to humility here, but we could be talking about other attributes as well. Everyone lands somewhere along the spectrum. Nobody has it all, and nobody has none of it all. Heather, do you have your hand up?
Yes. I just, this whole part about, it, where it gladly joins with every son of God whose purity it recognizes that it shares with him. That's really the whole essence of the 12-step programs, is for that, that we see ourselves, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We see ourselves and we are humble about it, and we can expose that. And then it gives other people the permission to see that too. And that's the essence of humility, is just the truth about who we are and what and what we're coming from. So I love that the program really works toward this goal, is to help us meet everyone, and that we see each other, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah. Yeah, we would assert that these are universal principles that are true of all healing and healed relationships. And so wherever people get together for the purposes of doing soul work, you would expect that these principles would be in evidence.
I mean, the purity could be just the realization that, when you look at someone who's been through what you've been through and you say, I know how that feels. That's the purity of there's beautiful.
Indeed.
Now prayer is lifted from the world of things, of bodies, and of gods of every kind, and you can rest in holiness at last. Humility has come to teach you how to understand your glory as God's Son and recognize the arrogance of sin. A dream has veiled the face of Christ from you. Now can you look upon his sinlessness? High has the ladder risen. You have come almost to heaven. There is little more to learn before the journey is complete. Now can you say to everyone who comes to join in prayer with you, I cannot go without you, for you are a part of me.
Mhm. So you can really experience the progression through the lateral prayer here. We're at the top, nearing the top, if not the top here. High has the ladder risen. You've come almost to heaven. There's little more to learn before the journey is complete. So it's a progressive ascension. And what does that look like? And now that may be beyond what any of us is practicing on a regular basis, but perhaps from time to time, when conditions seem to be just right, you find yourself entering into the depths of your soul and you get a glimpse of this higher level of relationship, and where the world of things and bodies and of idols of every kind have been let go of. There's no attention, no beholding of those things as real, and you can rest in this inner state of peace. It requires the true humility we've been talking about. Is, I would say, that was like a major gateway one must pass through, is this gateway of true humility where one parks their arrogance at the door. Um, and and now one is able to see purity and innocence more clearly, the symbol, the face of Christ. Now you can look upon his holiness directly, and you can, this is to say that your soul is comfortable with standing in the presence of holiness. This is high on the ladder, and now you can say to everyone, because it is true, you need them to go with you. You cannot make this journey alone. It's a journey that is centered on love. How can you possibly go it alone? You need others and their relationships with you, because you find part of yourself. They have the Holy Christ within them as well. And at this level of prayer, you're able to access that understanding that they too are your fellow sons of God, that you are able to acknowledge the Christ within them.
I cannot go without you, for you are a part of me. And so is he in truth. Now can you pray only for what you truly share with him? For you have understood he never left, and you, who seemed alone, are one with him. The latter ends with this: for learning is no longer needed. Now you stand before the gate of heaven, and your brother stands beside you there. The lawns are deep and still, for here the place appointed for the time when you should come has waited long for you. Here will time end forever. At this gate, eternity itself will join with you. Prayer has become what it was meant to be, for you have recognized the Christ in you.
So in this section now, we've completed the entire journey. The latter ends with this state where you have joined with your brother in recognition that it's a common light that is shared together. So this is a metaphor. What's it really mean? At this state is what the Course refers to as learning is complete. Learning is no longer needed. This requires, there's of a number of conditions: that forgiveness be complete, that peace be experienced, that the mind is trained and committed to this practice and this path, that we become truly humble. So they're all not saying that this is something one arrives at overnight, but this is where it all heads. And at that point, the ladder ends. Being on a ladder is not a long-term solution to anything. The ladder ends and we get off the ladder and arrive at what's called the lawns of heaven. And the lawns of heaven are outside the gates of heaven, and the lawns are deep and still. It's a place where time comes to an end, and here time will end forever. And it's which doesn't mean the end of everything. It means a transition from time into eternity. At this gate, eternity itself will join with you. And then prayer continues in its original form, the way it was meant to be. For now, you have recognized the Holy Son of God is who you are and who they are, and that we are united in holy light together. That would be the way it, so to speak, transitions into the next universal age, which is what happens after that is beyond the scope of this course. But if anybody that makes it that far, you need not worry about what happens after that. All will take care of itself. And so that is the ladder of prayer. That's the first section in the Song of Prayer. Next, this is looking ahead. Next, we'll go over the second part of the Song of Prayer, which is the role of forgiveness. And we have not really put forgiveness front and center in this discussion so far. But we're going to go back down to the beginning of the ladder and climb it once again so that now you know how it looks. But now we're going to look at the role of forgiveness along the way, including those imposter forms of forgiveness that the ego would like you to practice, where it's pretending to forgive. So we'll look at that, and then the intermediate and the higher stages for forgiveness. All that we will do next session when we get together. For those of you joining online, that's next Saturday morning. So the ladder of prayer, I now really am convinced, I've convinced myself that the entire journey of A Course of Miracles is captured in this Song of Prayer section that we're reading. There are, of course, additional details that it won't speak to every possible detail along the way. But the description of the journey from the early ego stages all the way up to these lofty stages where we arrive at the gates of heaven is all contained in here. And so this truly is a description of the stages along the way. And as we read in the previous section, you need to understand these stages. These are stages that all souls go through. The time that you go through it is a matter of your choice and your choosing, your willingness. But this is the path to return home. And so I think it's an honor to be able to share these things in this time-space world that we live in this world where arrogance, there's arrogance all the way to true humility, all these seeming contradictions that go on. I think it's an honor to be able to share in these things and affirm that they are meaningful and allow them to guide our life. So thank you all for participating in this journey. Thank you, Heather, for reading. I look forward to getting together real soon. Namaste.
Thanks, Jonica. Thanks, Heather.
Thanks, Jonica. Thanks, Heather, for reading.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather. Thanks, everybody.
You all. Thanks, Jonica.
Peace and
Bye.